Hi guys, in this video we're going to make a little model of Edith from Despicable Me. We're going to make her in flour and modelling paste. I'm just going to use the white one and I'm going to dye it up to the colours that we need. But to start with, we're just going to use it white on its own. So taking my white, I'm just going to knead it till it's nice and soft and that there's no cracks showing in it. And all I'm going to do is roll it either side, so that we're leaving a big chunk in the middle and creating a thin and narrow bit at either side. And then what I'm going to do is cut this down the middle, like so, to give us these shapes, which are going to be Edith's feet. So she's got quite big boots on anyway, but we want them big so that they hold the weight of her body and that she doesn't topple over. So these are a little bit tall as they are. If you want to, you can create more of an angle there inside the foot. Indent it a little bit more. And I'm just going to cut the tops off of those now. Shorten her boots. So what I've done is dyed a small amount of my modelling paste, like a burgundy colour. So I've pulled off a small amount of what I've dyed for her legs, and we're just going to roll them. We don't want them too thin. Now they're going to have to be a little bit narrower than the tops of her boots, so we'll keep going. Just keep checking the width. I'm just going to cut the end off so I can tell a little bit better. So that's probably going to be alright now. I'm going to cut that down, make the other one match. Again, just holding them against your boots. Now they're going to be quite tall, I think, at this length, so I'm going to cut them down a little bit more. So that's a little bit better size wise, and what we're going to do is just stick a bit of water, just a small amount, on the bottom of each of those. You can use edible glue if you prefer. And I'm going to angle them so that they come in a little bit at the top, so that they're sort of closer together at the top. If you know it's going to be eaten, you don't have to put any internal support. But for this one, I'm going to put internal support in to make sure she stays upright. So I'm going to insert a cocktail stick into each leg. Now we need to work out how tall she's going to be, so if you think this is going to be taller than the body, just take a little bit off the ends of the cocktail stick. Once we've done that, to show you what they look like from the sides, we're going to add her skirt. So I've taken a little bit more now of my burgundy, and I'm just rolling it to make sure that I'm rubbing out the cracks that seem to have gathered in it. So I'm starting by holding it at either end and then rolling it to start creating this kind of shape. And I'm going to make it a little bit more oval in shape rather than rounded, because it's going to sit on top of the legs. And what I'm going to do is push it a little bit at the top so it's narrower at the top and it comes out wider at the bottom. So I'm just going to pinch that around the bottom edge to just sharpen that edge up a little bit, like so. And I'm just going to hold it against my legs for how thick I want it to be and how wide it needs to be. So I'm going to try bringing it out just a tiny bit more here. And what I'm going to do is just cut a little bit off the length or the height of it. So we're going to cut it to about here. Again, just checking that you're happy with what it looks like. Once you are happy, again, a bit of water underneath, or you can use edible glue. Just make sure your legs are in the right position that you want them to be in. And then we're going to push this over. Oh, maybe I should have done those one at a time. So I'm just going to push that centre bit down so that it holds my cocktail sticks apart as they're wanting to touch together at the front. That's now what it looks like. And what I'm going to do now is leave this to dry for a little bit before we add the body, because if we start putting extra weight on now, the legs are going to squash a little bit. So I'm going to give that a good few hours to dry, or if you've got time you can leave it overnight. So I've let Edith's legs dry overnight, so they're a little bit harder, so that hopefully they won't squash when we add the body. So I'm taking a lighter pink. Again, it is my modelling paste. Now, I mixed this colour yesterday, so it started to dry a little bit in the bag, so I'm just going to re-knead it. And what we're going to do is roll it into a cone. So I'm just trying to roll it, press firmly to get rid of any cracks that I've got in it. Sometimes I find it easier to roll in my hands, and sometimes I find it easier on the board. I don't know why. Some days I just can't roll it in my hands. Okay, so I've left a little flat bit at the top where we're going to stick her head onto, and I've widened it at the bottom. So I'm just going to cut a straight line across the bottom of her body. Well, I might have cut it slightly at an angle, so we'll cut a bit more of it. And I'm just going to hold it against my skirt so I can see how tall it is in comparison and how much wider it is. So I think I'm just going to take just a small amount off the bottom still. And we'll try again. So I think her body's probably similar in height to what we've already got for the legs. And we're now going to put a little bit of water on the bottom. And we're just going to push the sticks into her body. Trying not to misshape it too much, but you can push it around a little bit until you're happy with it. So my sticks are just poking out slightly at the top. I'm not going to worry about that too much because the head will cover those up. And I'm going to put another cocktail stick into the body where her head's going to attach onto. So it will only go as far as the skirt. If you try pushing it too far down, what will happen is the skirt will just start to crack. In fact, I'm going to take a little bit off the bottom. So remember to tell anybody that gets this, if you're putting cocktail sticks in, that they cannot eat it. Okay, I'm going to give her some hands, or arms even. She's got quite long sleeves, I think, with the hands only just poking out at the bottom. So we're just going to roll, keeping one bit slimmer and it getting thicker as we go down. And put the slimmest bit to the top of our body. And her sleeves finish about where her skirt ends, but I'm just going to thin it down a little bit more. We don't want them too thick. And I'm going to cut it about here. And I'm just going to use the bottom of my paintbrush to create a little bit of an opening in the bottom of her sleeve to open it up a bit. And I'm going to put a little bit of water on the inside of her arm that we're going to push against the side of the body. Just keep standing it up to make sure it looks alright. So you're just going to repeat the same for the other arm. So taking a slightly darker shade of pink than her top is, we're going to roll it out nice and thin, and we're going to cut some stripes to go on her top. So I'm going to cut this into strips for the jumper. So I'm just going to put a little bit of water down the centre of the body, and then we'll put our first strip down the centre. So I'll start up from the top, bringing it down, and I'll just trim it at the bottom. So now we've done that, we're going to stick a bit of water down either side of the body. And I'm going to leave a bit of a gap and then add my next stripe. Again, we're just going to trim at the bottom. And I'm just going to push it in tight at the top. You can do your stripes a bit thinner than I have done if you like, because I think mine are quite thick. Oh, now picking it up's the difficult bit. Just going to cut that extra bit off there where the arm goes. And we're going to put the same now on the arms, starting from the bottom of each arm. I'm going to trim off the extra. Push that around there. And do that all the way up each arm now. So I've just repeated the same on the back and on the other arm now for the stripes. You could roll them thinner if you want than I have done, because mine stick out quite a bit. So I'm taking some flesh colour now, so I've just dyed this a flesh colour. And we're going to put our hands in, but they're only just going to peep out from the very, very bottom of our sleeve. So what I'm going to do is add a little bit of water into the bottom of the sleeve, so into that little hollow that we've created. And I'm literally going to roll a really, really small ball for a thumb, and we're just going to push it just at the front of the sleeve. And we'll do the same on the other side. I'm going to do the same for the other fingers, and I'm going to roll 4 little balls for each hand. I'm going to make them slightly sausage shaped, and we're just going to push them into the edge of our sleeve, so that from the front you can only just see them peeking out. Do the same on the other side. So I've just rolled a ball of flesh colour fondant now for a head, and I'm just going to gently push in slightly across the centre for some eye sockets. Excuse the fact that I've got food colouring stuck in my fingers. Now our head's quite big compared to a body, so that's fine. And we're going to keep a mouth quite simple on this one. So we're just going to draw in a slight little line. You can use a cocktail stick if you prefer. And then we're going to push this on. In fact, we'll put a bit of water on the top of the body. You can use edible glue if you want. So I'm going to just push this into a head. Careful not to squash it too much. So I've just got a little gap in mine, so what I'm going to do is just roll a little pink bit like this that we're going to stick in the gap. So just there. And it just looks then like the collar on a jumper. Now I'm just going to add Edith a little nose. I've now got yellow food colouring all over my hands from dyeing some earlier. Now it's almost just a little oval shape, so we'll just create an oval and put it in place. And then we're just going to stick that on with a little bit of water. I'm just going to gently push in a little nostril at either side. I've stuck her eyes on now. I thought I'd pressed record, and I obviously haven't, so I'll show you now how I've done that. You're literally going to take 2 small balls of fondant, and we're just going to squash them down. And what you're going to do is just flatten a tiny bit at the bottom of each one, like so, and you're just going to stick that in place on the face. I do apologise that I'd not pressed record. So we're going to paint our eyes using a little bit of blue and a little bit of grey. We're going to water it down a little bit in the lid. And now we're going to paint in our eyes. So it looks quite bright blue at the moment, and we don't want it to be quite as bright, so that's what the grey is going to do, is going to tone it down a little bit for us. So we're going to go around with a bit of grey around the edge. And we're just going to need a really small amount of black for the centre of our eyes. So roll in 2 black balls, and we're going to put them into the eyes like so. So taking a tiny bit of white, we're going to roll 2 small white balls again to put little highlights in our eyes with. Taking the paler pink, we're going to make her hat. So we're going to start with a round ball, and we're going to pinch it to create a little bit of a hollow in the centre of it. Trying to keep a thicker bit in this top bit up here. Bringing it round thinner as we come round. And we're just going to place it against her head so I can see how high it comes to. Now it's not very neat at the edges at the moment, but we'll trim that down. And I'm going to add some water to her head for sticking it on. So I'm going to add water up to where I want it to come to. So I'm going to bring it to just above the eyes and right round, or almost right round the back of the head. So if we put that on like so. And we're going to trim that then to the right size. So we're going to trim to about the top of our eye level. I'm going to take it round to the back. Now we're going to add a bit of hair as well at the back, so don't worry that you'll be able to see a bit of a head. Trying to bring it round to meet the other side. And she's just got a few little creases in the top of her hat, so we're going to push those in place. Like so. We might have to push them in a little bit deeper again once we've added the stripes. So I'm going to pull a little bit off to make her little tassels that hang down with. And I'm just going to roll this into a bit of an oval and squash that down. It might be that it's too big at first, so we'll see. Pointing it down a little bit. It's not too bad, we'll just lengthen it a little bit there. And then hold it in place. So I think that's about where we want it to come to. So we're going to add a bit of water to that now. And sticking it in place. Same with the other one. I'm going to give her a little bit of hair now at the back. So I've just dyed my modelling paste pale yellow for her hair, and I'm just going to roll a little strip out. So I'm just going to cut a straight edge across the top, and then I'm going to have a look at how long it wants to be. So if I hold it there, I think we're going to bring it to about here. She doesn't have very long hair, so we'll just cut to there. And again, we're going to put it against the back so we can see how wide the strip needs to be. So it's just going to go from ear to ear, so here to here, and then we'll cut that. So I'm going to cut it out so it's a little bit wider at the bottom than at the top, and then we're just going to mark in some lines. You can use a cocktail stick, you don't have to use a modelling tool for this, that's fine. If you want, you can snip out some or cut out some tiny little bits. Just tiny little triangles coming out of there. And turn it over and put some lines on the other side too. Check we've not stretched it out too much when we've put the lines on. And then what we'll do is we'll stick it into that gap there. So a little bit of water on there. Push that in place like so. And you should only be able to see a really tiny bit of a hair from the front. Okay, so now she needs her little stripes on her hat. So back to our darker pink. I'm going to roll this out nice and thin, and we're going to cut out our strips. So these are a bit longer than they actually need to be, but that's fine, we can cut them in half. We're not going to need many, so we'll just cut 2 for the time being. And we're going to start at the very bottom of a hat, and we're just going to add a little bit of water where we're going to stick it. And I'll just trim the ends off. And we'll start at the back, bringing it round. Cutting it where it meets the other one, and we'll do that a couple more times with the other bits now. So she's almost done, we just need the little tassels now on the bottom of her hat. So we're back to our pale pink, and we're just going to stick the tassels on coming from the bottom of these ear pieces. So roll them nice and thin. And then we'll try and fold it in half and twist it. So it looks a bit more like the string. And then we're going to stick that to the bottom bit on there. Now, if you can attach it somewhere to her top, then it's going to give it a little bit more support. So for the bottom of the string, I'm going to start with a ball that we're going to roll into a bit of a teardrop shape, or a bit, and then we'll squash it into a bit of a triangle. And we're just going to put a couple of little slits in it. And then we're going to stick that on the end of the string. So we're just going to repeat exactly the same for the other side. So there she is, finished. If you liked this one, check out my other little minion videos where I've done Gru, a yellow minion and a purple minion. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video and would like to see more, please click on the images of the other videos suggested. Also, please do subscribe to my channel using the button at the bottom right hand corner of the screen. You can also visit my cake website and my Facebook page to see more cakes and ideas.